Hey friends, thanks for joining me, Jim Baroud, to hear a few insights from leaders who represent our innovation ecosystem. Today's chat includes entrepreneur Wendy Diamond, founder of Women's Entrepreneurship Day organization and Animal Fair Media. Tell us your story, where you've been, everything you've done, and where you're going.
Hey, I'm Wendy Diamond. Thank you so much for joining us. Happy Friday. Woohoo! I am, originally from a little town in Ohio called Chagrin Falls. 1,500 people, actually 2,500 people now. So sorry, 2,500 people. But when I was there, it was a lot less. And I am a country bumpkin living in New York City, still the greatest city on earth, even though we're going through some times right now with COVID. And by the way, I've taken a little more, so it'll be 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Okay. Anyway, so fast forward, I come from a little town in Ohio. I went to school. I had some, issues growing up where my parents were going through some really terrible times. So when I was young, I had 2 jobs and went to high school and had the biggest smile on my face because I knew that, I wanted to be in control of my own life. And that at a young age, because of what happened with my family, I kind of had to be, right? So after school, I didn't have really great grades because I used to have to go to work and stuff like that. But my aunt from San Francisco was like, we got to send you to college. Where are you going to go? And she found this amazing school in Boston called Pine Manor College, which is now part of Boston College. So I can actually say now I went to Boston College. Woohoo! Anyways, and so going to that college enlightened me to the whole world. I went to school with people from Indonesia, from Turkey, from Saudi, that opened up my small mind of being from Ohio and opened it up to the whole universe. And so in college, I still had to work. My aunt luckily paid for my school and so forth and enabled me to go to school. But I always had jobs, right, through going through college because I had to pay for my spending money. And, I like to have fun. I don't drink or do any drugs or anything. I never have. But I love to do things and experience things because the greatest gift you can give yourself is to experience new cultures and places and experiences, of course. So from there, I moved to Istanbul, Turkey. That led me to going into Russia, where I started my first business at 23, where I brought Valentino Ungaro, Jean-Franco Ferré, all the GFT manufactured labels, and I would buy all their stock, 10 cents on the dollar, and ship it to Russia, because at that time, they didn't want to flood their existing markets. And I would put this all together, SGS inspected, 20-foot containers, and I had a partner in Russia. Fast forward, did pretty well doing that from Ohio, and decided, you know what? The poverty in Russia really bothered me, and to see that kind of was disturbing. So I said, you know what? I don't want to be here anymore. So I moved to New York City. So when I moved to New York City, I ended up befriending a homeless person, which enabled me to then realize, wow, being from Ohio, living in Boston, living in Europe and Russia, you didn't really see that, right? And I really found it one of the most important things I did in my life was take the time out of my life for 6 months and volunteered for the Coalition for the Homeless, where I fed 1,000 people per week, because they used to have these vans, and then they would give them meals and stuff like that. And I would help give them meals out in the van and stuff. And I'll just never forget one guy. He had, maybe 3 teeth and had the hugest smile on his face. He was beautiful, thanking me for a cold ham sandwich. I'm a vegetarian my whole life, so I would never eat the ham sandwich, and a milk. And I never would drink milk. Like that, and an apple. And he was so excited, which made me say, my God, this is the greatest gift. Because then I would go home and be with all my friends and be at hot restaurants and stuff like that, and look around they're what did you do today? And it was kind of surreal. And so that would led me to deciding to help homeless people, because I felt and I saw it. And I think, for me, in my whole life, if I see it and I feel it, it makes me really passionate about it. I want to help. So that's when I went on a journey to create 2 cookbooks. Well, first there was the first one, and then I did a second one with all the celebrities. At that time, a lot of celebrities weren't really doing that kind of stuff, right? And so I got Madonna and Aerosmith and all these famous people, and I raised $500,000 for the homeless, for the Coalition for the Homeless in New York, and Empty the Shelters, which at that time was a national organization. I was on Oprah and Howard Stern and all this stuff promoting it, and it was really one of the greatest things I ever could do. Then I was in New York City. Again, I started that in New York City. I said, oh my gosh, I really want to, get a dog or a cat, because I'm from Ohio. I grew up with bunnies, horses, the whole thing, and dogs, of course, and cats. And so I decided to go to the city shelter to adopt a dog and cat. And that would change my whole life and actually change the whole dynamic to animal rescue as what you see today in America. Because at that time, nobody was talking about adoption or rescue. That was in 1998, 1999. By the way, don't want to age myself because I'm forever young. Woo! Anyway, so anyways, from there, I adopted this purebred Maltese and a purebred Russian blue cat. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, how do you get these purebreds at a shelter, right? And I started doing research and I realized there were 12 million animals euthanized a year that year. And nobody, I'm telling you, nobody was talking about rescue or adoption. But because after school, by the way, I didn't realize your network is the most important thing. That's the most important thing you could ever have is your network. So I didn't know, like after school, you got to send out your resume to people you know, right, to connect you. But no one hired me. So I've always had to be an entrepreneur my whole life and create it. And the only way I'm able to do it is I'm so passionate about it that nothing's going to stop me from making this difference in the world. So that's when I went on a journey and created Animal Fair, the first ever media company to bring celebrities and pop culture to the animal rescue world. Because I knew if we simplified the message, because everyone in the world wants to help, you just have to make it easy for them, right? So I knew if we simplified the message, you could adopt any dog, any breed, any size, any age, that people would learn to adopt versus buy. So I created the first ever pet fashion show. I created the words Yappy Hour, which you see everywhere right now. You go to yappyhour.com, it goes to me. And so, if you see like a lot of that stuff, 10 books out, 5 TV shows, 3 Guinness World Records. I was on the Today Show all the time, primetime show on CBS. Wing named after my dog at the Humane Society, millions of dollars raised for animal rescue. I got blessed with a stalker in 2011 that basically, ruined my life and I had to step away from the public life. That was really difficult. It was a really tragic time in my life. Not a lot of people knew about it because I didn't really talk about it. But that led me on another amazing journey because then in 2013, I ended up in Honduras on vacation, not realizing it was the murder capital of the world. And when I got there in Honduras, well, first of all, I booked the trip. I didn't realize it was the murder capital of the world, but I felt like, my life is, I guess I'm meant to go there, right? And so I ended up while I was there volunteering for an organization that gives microloans to poor women, which led me to realizing, wow, these women who get these microloans. I met one woman, she was 72 years old. She literally had 3 kids, 72, and 3 kids. I'm like, how'd you have these kids? And she's like, my daughter passed away. My husband ran off and I had to do something. So I got this $100 microloan, which enabled her to open up a window in her hut and sell Cokes and toothpaste, which enables her to put her kids through school $1 each per month. Because in this community, people don't even make $1 a day, right? And I learned in 2013 all the statistics about this. They pay those loans back at a 98% rate. 90% of that money goes to educate their children, provide for their families. When women are empowered in business, they don't allow human rights violations, right? Because they're empowered. And so I learned coming back to New York, wow, 1% at that time, venture dollars go towards women-founded businesses. I was like, wow, if I could do what I did in the animal world, in the women's world, we could alleviate poverty and help the world. So that's when I decided to come back to New York after Honduras, and I created an official day in the world called Women's Entrepreneurship Day. And that was Governor Cuomo, Mayor de Blasio, U.S. Congress, Mayor Garcetti, they all proclaimed the day, and we are now celebrated literally in if you Google it, you'll crack up, in 144 countries. And I went to my network again and asked everyone in the world who I knew, who in your country or city would be the greatest person to represent our movement, to bring governments, business leaders, civil society together to collaborate, to find solutions to uplift women in business. So that's my main gig right now. I do that, 90% of my time is work on this foundation and helping this. And we've just partnered with Bartle Bogle Hegarty. The chairwoman, Sarah, there has come on board, and a lot of big groups. So we're going to be launching Choose Women this year to ask everyone in the world on December 2nd, the Wednesday after Thanksgiving, to choose women. James, who do you choose?
Oh my God.
Whoever Anyway, so that's what we're going to do this year, because it's simple. If you hear the words choose women, you understand why should we choose women? Because when you choose women, 90% of that money they earn goes to educate their children, provide for their families, and that uplifts the entire community. But also, boards and companies realize, they have better profits when they have women on boards and things like that. So when you look at all the statistics, whether you're supporting women in film or art or politics, it's just important to recognize if we want to reach gender equality. And I also invest in impact, and I'm a seed investor in impact, love helping entrepreneurs that are going to make a difference in the world. And I launched my new company the first day of isolation, because when I launched Women's Entrepreneurship Day, I learned that 250 million girls were living in poverty. And Tinder in 2013 just came out. It was a huge, everyone was talking about it. I said, my God, if we could create an app for everybody to have a mentor, especially those 250 million girls living in poverty, we could change the world. So that's my life story. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
That is amazing, and well done. That was a lot to cover, obviously. Now, everyone is thinking about your Guinness Book of World Records, right? That's one thing that is super interesting. I know what they are. I think we spoke about this before, but go over that, because I'm sure people in the back of their head say, what could those be?
Okay, so I'm kind of scrappy. Like, I love startups. I love entrepreneurship. And, to be creative is the way that you can literally get publicity and create change in this world, right? So what happened was my first Guinness World Record was my dog Lucky, that inspired me to create Animal Fair. But like, would come with me everywhere. I had separation anxiety, all this stuff. So I would just carry my dog, but I wasn't the type of person, when you see these people out like showing their dog to everybody, that wasn't me, right? I had a bag and I would keep my bag. I wouldn't show anybody. So my dog ended up with me in a lot of places. And in that period of time, so remember, this was like in the 2000s and stuff like that, before you were like posting every single thing you did in life, right? I didn't really want to be in the photos because I didn't really know those people, right? So basically I would take pictures with people I was with my dog. And it was a column in my magazine called Who Got Lucky. So my dog was with about 800 celebrities, everyone from like Kanye West to Kim Kardashian to President Obama to President Clinton to, oh my gosh, I don't know, Hugh Grant to, I don't know, everybody. It was like so many people. Anyways, and the column was Who Got Lucky. It was like the only sexy column in a dog magazine. So my first Guinness World Record was the dog most photographed with celebrities. And my second Guinness World Record was the longest curtsy relay with the Lord Mayor of London. And my third Guinness World Record was the most expensive pet wedding in history. And if you Google it, like I would Google to see it, it's the funniest thing. Watch the Conan O'Brien video of my dog's wedding. And we raised enough money for a wing at the Humane Society. And everybody for my wedding donated, like the Essex House in New York City and $50,000 worth of flowers. And it was just really one of the most amazing events. And so everything we did was really bringing awareness towards animal rescue, except the Lord Mayor in London thing was a fluke. And I was at a dinner party and they said, we're getting a Guinness World Record that day.
Got it. All right. Well, thank you for explaining that. When you were doing the clothing, what was some of the learnings from that, that you remember as far as dealing in international goods or items or fashion?
Well, I think it's, even like what I'm experiencing now, right? It's all about the people. Do you trust the people, right? So I had a really good partner in Russia because I knew that person from college in Boston. So I knew, if I bought the units, I knew that I would ship them somewhere. And he used to, what was really great about it, people usually don't do this, he would wire cash before I even without even a contract, by the way, before even buying anything. So, really it was like I had all this cash and I was able to go to Italy and go to Torino or Florence and go into those stock houses. And, it was pretty interesting, right? Because they didn't really want to flood their existing markets. So I had to guarantee shipment and get it insured by SGS and so forth to Russia, because at that time, nobody was trusting the Russians. So, I had the whole infrastructure set up. So it was, when I look back, of course, when you look back, you never think of the bad things, right? Do you know what I mean? You're always like, oh, it's great. And then you're like, oh my God, I almost got killed. So it was, I kind of like ended it because it was getting a little weird at the end, because what happened was, the people in Russia ended up getting a lot of agency stuff and a lot of stuff. So it was kind of an interesting time, if that answers your question, right?
Well, obviously Russia is in the news still. All right. Someone asks, how everyone loves your energy.
Okay.
I love your energy too.
Okay, thank you.
But they're asking, how do you have so much energy? Is it because you do yoga a lot, or because you're a vegan?
All of the above, all of the above. I think it's, I work on projects that matter, and I work on projects that help the world. I always, in my mind, like if I get down, I always think about in Honduras, and like, my life is not as hard as that woman that, was opened, got $100 microloan and has to work all day and has the 3 kids and all that kind of stuff. And I think the more you really understand and you spend time with those people, you realize how lucky you are. And so, even in this time with COVID, I'm a very social person. I love life and so forth. The greatest gift I could do is start a new business and enable everyone in the world a free mentor, right? So everything I do, even though it's ups and downs, and I'm like, oh man, did I really hire a team in India? I'm going to shoot myself. You know what I mean? And I'm 2 months delayed. And I just am like, well, okay, wait, just take a step back, right? Because, whatever we're doing right now, we realize like that, we don't need a lot of money anymore. Like, what do you need money for? You need money for home, you need money for health, you need money to eat and so forth, and education for your kids and the whole thing. But really all that other stuff doesn't really matter. And I think, we realize that now, right? And I think that the more that we focus on purpose and passion during this time, I think you're going to see a lot more people being energized and having much more, excitement with what they do in life.
Yeah, no doubt. So here's a question. You've had a lot of success in the past, but what would you say is your biggest failure, and what did you learn from it?
Oh my gosh, so many failures. So many failures. Okay, so let's just, we could start with animal fair, right? I'm a do-gooder. Like, all I want to do is help the world. So when I created Animal Fair, it was fairness to animals. A little take on Vanity Fair, but it was fairness to animals, right? And, when you know a lot about the animal rescue world, I always helped the groups that had no money, right? Because, to me, charity is helping those that can't help you. And so I always worked with the groups that didn't have marketing, didn't have PR, all that kind of stuff. And I then had so it's not sustainable. If I worked with the big groups, they could promote me, they could do all this stuff, but I really care about helping, and rescue is local. So, a lot of these bigger groups recognize themselves as national groups, but they're not national, right? Humane societies are by county. So like the Humane Society of Washington has nothing to do with the Humane Society of the United States, right? So if you donate money and you get all that mailers from them in the mail and you think you're helping animal rescue in your hometown, it's not, right? So that was a problem, because then, I didn't have like all that, that marketing and that PR from those people. So meaning they would start, taking my name, Yappy Hour, and using it for their own stuff when I owned the trademark, and I couldn't legally spend all that money protecting it and all that kind of stuff. And so that was one thing. And then, again, my dogs are like my children, like my pets are like everything, and they're, they don't have a voice, right? And so to, have to accept money from advertisers that are, have food that's not really good for your food, your dogs, or, things like that. It was just hard for me to just be excited and to be able to sustain the business. And then when my stalker came in, basically ruined my life and created 50 anonymous email addresses to defame and slander me. And it was like this whole crazy thing, and couldn't, track the IP and so forth. So I wouldn't say it's a failure, because the number from 12 million animals euthanized a year down to 2 million is, basically, why is that? Because celebrities and pop culture. And when you look, when I started and you look at all the media there, you'll see nobody was talking about rescue or adoption, and they gave us credit. And if you think about, that, it's a huge success. So that's kind of how I look at it versus, is it a failure? I think it's like, wow, I learned so much. Like, if you're going to create a business, you got to be sustainable, right? Even if you're a nonprofit, you got to find creative ways to be sustainable. right? So I would think that's, that would be the greatest learning experience that I've had. And that goes for everything now I do. And that's why with my new venture, it's called Be My Mentor. Because will you be my mentor? Because I never had a mentor. And no, a lot of people haven't had a mentor. And I want to make it really easy and simple for everyone in the world to get a free mentor. And so that's what I'm doing, is creating a really robust, sustainable revenue model so that we can be forever enabled this.
I love that. So here's a question. What was it like, the change from going to a small town, Chagrin Falls, to New York City, one of the biggest cities in the world?
I always say you can take a girl out of the country, but you can't take the country out of the girl. I mean, my personality is from Ohio, right? I'm always, I've never lost my inner child. I'm always like excited. I'm always like, oh my gosh, I want to see and learn and do. And, I think, being here, I still have that, and I think it's because I'll never give up, how I grew up, right? And, I'm still friends with everybody I grew up with. And, a lot of them, I mean, we're Facebook friends, but whenever I go back, I go to reunions and stuff like that, right? And so, but I think, it's important to just, appreciate wherever you are, right? And I don't ever look at negative. I've learned how to control my mind. So the way I see, think, and feel, I control. So whenever I think, darkly or whatever that is, I always just change my mind really quickly.
Right, and you have a lot of Facebook friends, right? I mean, there's over 1 million people on your animal care Facebook page.
Well, that goes back to the movie, I'm not really into social media anymore. I really, when you have a stalker, you kind of say to yourself, you know what? I don't really need to be public to create change, right? Like, I don't really need everyone to know what I'm doing anymore, right? Because, every day I'm like, working on projects that are literally so incredible. One of the companies I'm invested in is called Producers Market. They bring traceability, transparency, and storytelling to the supply chain, right? The $4 trillion supply chain of agriculture. And, I want to know what I'm eating. I've been a vegetarian since 7 years old. I know that what you eat is who you are. So I'm like, just definitely like a healthy, if I eat a lot of pizza, but when I eat that pizza, I savor every bite because I know, oh gosh, our bodies are not meant to digest processed foods. You know what I mean? So it's going to take a little longer. So I have to drink more water that day. So meaning, when I think about, that company Producers Market, and I think of what we're doing, I was able, when I get involved with companies, I really figure out like, how can I accelerate their growth? Because they're really meant to empower farmers, and 20% of the company is given to the farmers, right? So we've done a partnership in the state of Andhra Pradesh in India, and we are putting 6 million farmers as part of this program called ZBNF onto our platform, right? To enable them to earn more money. But also when you go to Walmart in the future and all these retailers, you're gonna be able to scan the barcode through our technology and follow that woman farmer in India that has 1 hectare of land that shares a mobile phone with 12 other people through this self-help group, which is part of the Indian government, where the government gives these poor women 1 cell phone for these 12 groups, and they all save their money and they all get to use this 1 cell phone. And so like, these are the projects I work on every day. So how can I not be like grateful and happy and realize like how lucky I am?
Got it. That's great. So we have an international group here. Someone from Belarus says hi, and it's actually, his name is Igor. And he says, what is your favorite? I'm sure you know a lot of Igors. What is your favorite Russian word?
Nastarovia.
What does that mean?
Celebrate, right, Igor? Woohoo! Or cheers! Sorry, cheers.
Okay, sounds good. All right, let's see. So here's a question. How did you get so many people involved with all your organizations, and what helped you broaden your network?
Okay, so I'm nice to everyone, right? Because at the end of the day, you could be, when I did, first of all, I learned this at a young age, when I did Musical Feast, right? How did I get all the celebrities at 25 years old? How did I get Madonna and all these people, right? And it was just literally talking to the bodyguard of Madonna, talking to, Seymour Stein's daughter, Samantha, to get Madonna. It was like, I had to network. It was funny. And every time I would talk to people, I was so excited what I was doing. and the cause, right? And we're helping homeless people, right? Like, oh my gosh, you know what, and so that's kind of how it worked. And so, it kind of led to my whole life of like, okay, like just talk to people, right? Because I think, at the end, people don't realize, we have a lot in common with everyone, right? Everyone is an expert at something or a novice, but like everyone's an expert at something. So like, how do you connect people and help people? So I try to like leave every conversation and everything with a positive, right? Because I feel like if you do that, it kind of comes back at the end.
Sounds good. So here's a question about female entrepreneurs. What would be your advice to female business owners and entrepreneurs who are just starting their venture and who have self-doubts?
You're always going to have self-doubts, right? Believe me, I'm like, why do I think I could give everyone in the world a free mentor? Am I crazy? Yeah. So you're always going to have self-doubts, right? So that's why it's so important to whatever you do is to have such passion and have purpose. Cause like, if you really want to help whatever you're going to do, or, whether it's finding a cure for cancer, or whether it's, wanting to create, a pet store to help animals, whatever that is, right? Have a passion for doing it, because that's going to help you through those things. And plus research and connect. I always say to people, it's been really fun experience, for Be My Mentor, because I've really had to go out there and ask for help. And that's what I realized, like as a woman, it's hard to ask for help, right? Like I've never, because everyone looks as like it's a weakness or something, right? And I'm always kind of shy. I'm a little shy, like I really am kind of shy. And so, I think it's, hard to ask for help. But what I would say to people, wherever you're trying to do, research the top 100 people doing it and go to them, research them, find them on LinkedIn, find them on social media, and connect with them. Because I can guarantee you, out of those 100, and by the way, this is what it takes to be an entrepreneur and to create a business and the whole thing, 100 people, I'm sure you're going to get at least 5 back. And I know you're like, that's horrible odds, but those 5 people could be the ones that make a huge difference, right? So that's kind of how I think of things. And that's my advice to everybody, because I do believe if you make it really easy for people, you directly say, this is what I want to learn, or this is the advice I need, those people can then easily respond to you, right? But, again, just making it easy for people is the key.
Great. And we're still open for some more questions, so feel free to submit them. So here's a question. How do you select the projects that you choose to invest in, either your money or your time?
Okay, that's great. I have to love the people. And, it sucks right now, right? Because you can't really meet people you don't know, right? So it's kind of hard, but I really, am in love with the people I'm, they're my family. I talk to them all the time. I'm, everything I do is part of that, right? So I think it's super important for me is the team. Because it's because again, like going back to what do you do when things get tough, right? Or rough. What do you do? It's like you really have to have that resilience, right? And that perseverance, right? That you're going to get through it and you're going to be able to zigzag and figure out a way to make it happen, because things aren't always right? Things aren't always simple. The things that we see that are the most successful companies, yeah, sure, a few people got lucky, but most people have worked super hard. I mean, you look at Jeff Bezos' story, right? Even though he was a really smart guy, he still didn't, become the trillion-dollar company overnight. It took so many years just to get, the book business figured out, right? And people, I remember I was in the book business for a while, that people weren't always receptive of that.
Mm. And what about celebrities? What celebrities? Give us 1 or 2 celebrity stories which are etched in your mind, as far as how they acted, or an experience, or an incident.
Okay, I'll give you one story. This is fun. I love this story. And he's not really a celebrity, but he was with a really big celebrity. So I go to Davos every year because in Switzerland, because I do that every year. And was this last year? Yeah. So last year, is it last year or 2 years ago? I can't remember. Anyways, fast forward, I was in Davos and I was invited to this impact dinner. And by the way, I have a lot of haters because people hate happy people. It is crazy. You know what I mean? And they don't like nice people, right? Because they're like, oh, she's so lucky. And I'm like, well, do you know how hard I work? So anyways, fast forward. This one woman, said, and I sent that invite to a friend of mine who has done nothing in impact. Okay. But if you look at me, I'm like, I've done a ton in impact, right? And I sent her the invitation and she signed up too. And we get to the door and they said, oh, and it was like kind of like a woman hater, right? Like she was like, oh, sorry, we weren't able to have you at the dinner, but they allowed my friend in who didn't even have any impact. And my friend and I were like, oh, we're not going to this, right? So let's just go in. And I said to her, let's just have the time of our life. Right? Let's just go in and have fun and let's just order everything. Because at this restaurant, it was the Soho House of Davos, right? So it's like you can have all the free food, right? So I said, let's just go eat. And so we go in there and eat and we sit at this table and these two guys sit next to us. I might get in trouble for telling this, but this is the funniest story. And so with these two guys sit there, my friend's talking to like the kind of the guy that thinks he's too cool, and I was talking to this really nice guy and he was younger than me. Like there was no like, that way, but like, it was like, he was just younger than me and everything. And he literally, it is the craziest thing. 3 hours later, I'm still talking to this guy and I'm like, oh my God, this is the nicest guy in the entire world. He literally was so proper, so nice, so elegant. Like I can't even explain it. And he was so gorgeous and nice. And he was from Saudi Arabia. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, where are you from? I'm like, are you a royal family member? Because he was just like so nice. And he was showing me his new car company he invested in, his electric car company, and like all this stuff. And I was like, wow, how cool. But never, didn't compute, right? They even drove us home. Right. And he was like, here's my number. Let's keep in touch. And so he gave me that. And I, after that night, I literally said to my friend, my God, that was the nicest person ever. And she had the worst time with the friend. Right. So anyways, 2 weeks later, I come back to New York. I have like all these cards from Davos, etc. And I see his number and his name. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to keep in touch with him. He was like the nicest person. He literally created the first ever driving school in Saudi Arabia and all this stuff for women, by the way, driving school for women, and was doing all this impact for women and health and all this stuff. I Google his name and the first thing that comes up, Rihanna's boyfriend. And Jeff Bezos invested $500 million in his electric car company. I mean, could you imagine? So anyway, so that's a funny story to show you that, you might never have heard of this guy's name. But when I say to you, like Rihanna missed out on like the nicest, most, like he was so humble, right? And, so that would be a celebrity story that I think is kind of fun.
That's a great story. I love that. All right, so let's switch gears here. This is a serious question about. Let me just read it to you. We are in the space of in a time of domestic violence, stalking, and harassment. When this woman, speak in a room of investors, usually a bunch of white men, they appear super uncomfortable or not at all interested. How do you suggest getting a general audience excited about a tough subject that is really uncomfortable? I guess, obviously, the topic she just mentioned, I'm not sure whether she was pitching something or not, but this is her question.
Woo! Again, it's, I say peppiness is fun. You've got to be excited about whatever you're doing, and have those stories of like, even though like whatever I work on is really heavy, right? 250 million girls living in poverty, at the time with animal rescue, 12, now it's 2 million animals euthanized a year. These are dark subjects, right? But there's hopeful stories, right? And so showing some of those hopeful stories of the impact that you've had. So, whether it's, giving a microloan to a woman, that's living in poverty, but she's now got 5 cows and selling milk to the entire community, is a success story, right? And it's exciting, right? And so I think it's, just finding the creative ways to be able to get people excited to understand the impact that you're having with what you're doing.
Great. And that was, just so we know, that was Sherry from Victim's Voice, and she was indeed pitching Victim's Voice, which is a service which helps women. Speaking of women, obviously you've had experiences in the male world, right? Are there any tips for, obviously you've experienced harassment and discrimination, I'm sure. Any words of advice for women in general as they deal with this? Hopefully that's, decreasing over time.
Yeah. Any advice? I mean, again, it's about being positive, right? And realizing whatever we go, like, so I always say this, like, thanks to my stalker. Like, if it wasn't for my stalker, I wouldn't be who I am today and working on the great projects I'm working on now. And I'm having so much fun doing it. And I love making the impact, and I love, like, everyone I work with, but I would have never had the time to do this if I was still doing everything I was doing with Animal Fair. Right. And so I just have to say, you have to look at, whether everything is positive, whether in a day, a year, 10 years, 20 years, you know what I mean? You just have to realize, like, wow, whatever we go through, there's a reason we're going through it. We're going to learn something to help us get to that next level that we're supposed to get to. I know that's kind of, like, oh, it's easy to say, but it's actually the truth. Like, meaning when I was going through, and it was a dark time, I mean, 75% of the people I spoke to that were supposedly my friends that I helped and I did so much stuff for, literally dropped me because they got these defaming, slanderous emails that were not true, right? And that was a dark time. But in my head, I always knew, you know what? They probably are not meant to be in my life. Right. And they're probably, and so whatever, when you're going through anything, you just have to kind of keep that positive thing. Like, oh, that investor said no. Oh, well, I'm sure I'm going to find someone that's going to say yes. So I just got to go to another, 100. But I always put that word 100 because it's so astronomical. If somebody's not willing to do that, I wouldn't think they'd even be able to create the business. You know what I mean? Or I wouldn't invest my time or money in them, right? Because it's a numbers game. That's what life is,
So someone asked about Davos. Obviously that is a very special place with so many leaders from around the world. Tell us what that's like.
It's so funny. I mean, I think it's, so I was invited because of this program that I'm working on with United Nations Environmental Program and Sustainable India Finance and ZBNF in India. So that was why I was invited, and through the humanitarian work that I work on. But it is, an opportunity literally to be able to have conversations with people to collaborate. And to literally figure out ways. And again, for me, I'm not, luckily I do get a lot of opportunity and stuff like that. I make the opportunity. It's not like opportunity comes to me. I like make the opportunity, but like, but that is like one place that you can actually connect with so many people that really the thing that everyone has on their mind, right? And this is what's really great about it. It's all about impact. How are we going to work on the SDGs and like collaborate and do all this stuff? So they almost have to have that mindset of like open to collaboration because they all say it, right? If you listen to any Fortune 100 CEO or the United Nations people or governments, they're like, we want to collaborate with like the entrepreneurs and real people, and we want to do all stuff. Well, here I am. I'm a real person. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm ready. So I think it's like, I'd probably get more out of going there than most people because I'm just excited and I don't feel like I'm, important. Like a lot of those people think they're really important. I don't really think that, right? So I think, but I like get so excited to call them out and say, let's do this, right? So there's been a lot of really amazing things that have happened because of that.
Okay. There's a question about your investing in social enterprises and impactful organizations. So someone asked about, could you talk about the methods you use to assess impact in, in these organizations? So, what parameters or what criteria do you think about, or how has that changed? I mean, you've seen it through the years.
Right.
the rise of these types of organizations in sort of our mind share, right?
Right. So I think, number one, when I get involved with the company, it's the team is number one, but have they created the technology? Is it already working? Do they already have, traction? Because that is number one, how to say whether or not is this making impact or whatever that might be, right? So, some of the companies that I'm involved with, I mentioned with Producers Market, is giving 20% of the equity to farmers, right? So right there, there's impact, right? Number one, because that is allocated, right? And I can, and they just closed a $4 million round, right? And so now those farmers are going to have part of that company, and that to me is the greatest gift. So I know that those, farmers in India, 6 million, are going to have part of that, right? And so, everything that it has to already have that within the technology, within the business plan, and within the whole company already set up, or I would not get involved.
Got it. Okay. Well, that's good to know, because these days there's so many organizations, right? And it's to sort through them. It's really important to understand, as you say, the team, and if they're making impact and giving back, right?
Right, because so for instance, another one I'm in is called Base Pause. It's the 23andMe for pets, right? It's, it's the DNA test to enable pets to live healthier and longer, right? So it's the data, with that we're collecting that's going to enable better pet food, so pets can eat and live longer, to be able to track everything. So, you see the impact with whatever. So I think it's just really important to have it integrated with whatever you're doing if I'm going to be involved.
So as a female investor, what advice do you give to other, aspiring or women who are thinking about investing? Because, as you well know, it's a very small percentage that's growing, slowly. Any
Right.
advice for people when they get involved in investing in general or in impact organizations?
So yeah, like what, so if you're, open to it, I think the greatest thing you could do is to basically follow someone, find someone that you really, again, here's the thing, go after a budget, find like the 100 people that you think are the greatest people doing what you want to do in investing, and mirror them. I wouldn't say me, because I'm not, I've had some really bad ones at the beginning, right? I mean, so like I'm really, so now I'm kind of better at what I'm doing, but I've had some real bad ones, so I have to say, like I probably wish and that's why I'm creating Be My Mentor, because I wish it was really easy for me to connect with somebody and have a mentor for that. So, if I was somebody looking into investing, I'd have an internship with one of the companies. I would find the people that the companies that you love, find out who invested in them. All this stuff is on the internet. Google's the greatest gift, right? I mean, so, definitely I think if somebody, is interested, is to see the companies that they most are interested in getting at, whether it's in energy or agriculture or fintech or whatever it might be. Find the companies you love and then research the investors in those companies, and then go to those companies to see if you could be an intern, apprentice them, whatever that might be.
I really like that answer, right? Because there is so much information out there, and there's so many experts who we can learn from. It's just a matter of doing some searching, following them, and sort of getting guidance from folks in the industry. And that's relevant to whatever one does, whether it's investing or starting a business or going into a different industry or changing a career. So I appreciate that. So Wendy, why don't we do this? Share with us, one nugget of advice you would give to everyone listening.
What are you passionate about right now? Because we all have extra time right now, right? There's never been a time in history where time is the greatest asset, right? And so find and take time to do something that you love to do, right? That you're passionate about. And hopefully there's a purpose to it, because then you're going to feel really good about yourself.
Okay, so close us out. I've been asking folks to give us a proverb or a quote or something you live by, to close us out for this talk.
Okay. Okay, here it is. This is my quote. I never get credit for anything, but I will give you this quote. Over deliver, people remember. Under deliver, they quickly forget.
I love that. I love that. Wendy, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your wisdom. Thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please like it, leave a review, and subscribe. See you soon.